Allison Pigeon with Practice of the Practice. Today we're going to be going over how a health insurance claim form should look when you submit it to insurance to get reimbursed. So let me say a couple things before we jump into how to fill out the form. First of all, I don't actually literally type into this form every time I want to submit a claim. I have an electronic health record. Once the information is in there, it populates the form for me. But I think it's important for you to sort of see what the claim form should look like, so that way you can catch any potential mistakes, or if there's a problem with the claim, you can look at it quickly and see where maybe a mistake was made that can be corrected. So let's go over this claim form for Taylor Swift. So the first part is box 1. Usually what's checked is the other box is just asking what type of plan they have. Obviously, if you're billing Medicare or Medicaid, you're going to check those boxes over here. And then 1A is simply the ID number that's on the insurance card. So I always recommend that you get a copy of the insurance card when they come for their first visit. That way, if there's any issues or if you need to call the 1-800 number on the back, you have that specific information for that client. And then 2, 3, 5 are pretty self-explanatory: name, birth date of the patient, their address, their phone number. You would fill out 4 if the client had insurance through someone else. So if they have insurance through themselves, you don't have to worry about that section. But if they have it through a parent, then or a spouse, this is where you would fill in that information. So in box 4, Taylor Swift has insurance through her dad, not so Swift, get it? And so I have to fill in all his information. So in box 7, I have to fill out his address, his phone number. Over here in box 6, I don't know why it's checked other. It should actually be checked child. So I'll change that. And then box 11 is the group number, again, that's listed on the card. And this is the dad's birth date and dad's gender listed. So that's all really important, that if the insurance is through someone else, you need to fill in all this information. So if it's not, you don't need to fill it out. So for box 10, they're asking, is the condition related to the following things? Typically for mental health counseling, the answer is always no. And then the other thing you have to pay attention to on this top half of the form is this 11D. So they're asking, is there another health benefit plan? So this would be if somebody has both a primary and a secondary insurance. So if they do, obviously you'd have to check yes, and then over here you'd have to write down in boxes 9A through D what the other insurance is. So that could actually be a whole nother blog post or video in and of itself about how to bill a primary and a secondary insurance. So we're not going to get into that today. But for this example, I just put no, she doesn't have another insurance. So in boxes 12 and 13, because this is all done electronically, you can just say, I have the signature on file. And then the date would be the date that they actually came in the first time, because that would have been when you would have gotten their signature of like consent and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to skip down to the last part of the form. So you can see all the different boxes that I've left blank. It's totally fine if you leave them blank because they don't apply. So the only thing that I wanted to point out is in box 22, you would use this if you happen to need to resubmit a claim. Maybe there was an error and you needed to correct it and resubmit. So resubmission code typically is a 7 saying, yeah, I'm resubmitting. And then the original reference number is like if the insurance company assigns some kind of identification number to that claim, you would actually write it in here. So some insurances are more picky about that than others. Sometimes it's good, especially if you're new at this, to call and just say, hey, I need to resubmit a claim. What's the best way to do that? So anyway, that's what this is about. So you may need to use that at some point. So jumping back over here to box 21, so this is where you need to give the client a diagnosis. So I've assigned Taylor Swift F32.1 from the DSM-5, and then this little thing, ICD indicator over here, 0 means we're using ICD-10 codes, which align with the DSM-5 code. So you shouldn't be using ICD-9 codes, I think, anymore. So that should be a 0. And then down here, I'm giving information about when did I actually see the patient. So I saw her on August 13th of 2016. Obviously, like we're not an inpatient unit, so there wouldn't be like 8/13 to 8/14 or something like that. It would always just be the same day. Under B, the place of service typically is an office. That's code 11, so that's why 11 is in there. C can be left blank. Under D, this is where you put the CPT code. CPT codes are universal, so they're always going to be the same for every insurance company. A 90834 means a session, a psychotherapy session that lasted between 37 and 52 minutes. So that's what I did. So that's what code I'm using. And then over here for modifier, this doesn't necessarily have to be filled out, but I filled it out here just so you could see an example. So if you are doing a EAP session, Employee Assistance Program session, you would put in HJ for the modifier to show, yes, this is EAP. So that's what I did here. And you can also get a list. You could Google a list of the modifier codes. This is where if you were billing for online counseling, you would put in the modifier GT, because that denotes that you did an online session. So over here in box E, diagnosis pointer means in that session, what diagnosis were you helping the patient with? Obviously, she only has one diagnosis, so it's going to be A. If I had 2 diagnoses, I might say, well, I just worked on B today, or I worked on A and B today. So it just depends on what you did in the session. Over in box F, this is my full fee. So I say for a 90834, I charge $100. And over here in G, I'm doing 1 unit of that. So typically insurance companies won't pay for more than 1 unit a day, unless there's some extenuating circumstances. And then in box I, I'm using my NPI number to show, my identification as a licensed provider. And then over here in J is where I'm going to put my NPI number. Obviously, that's not my real NPI number. So coming down here to box 25, you have to put in your federal tax ID number. This could be a social security number or an EIN number. So I don't recommend using your social security number just because it's floating out there where you don't know who's seeing it. I think it's worth it to apply to get an EIN number through your state. So I would definitely recommend that. In box 26, the patient's account number, this is just like an ID number you've assigned to the client. So it can be anything that you want it to be. My electronic health record just happens to randomly generate patient numbers. So that's where that came from. Under accept assignment, this is a really important one too. If you check yes, the check from the insurance company is going to come to you. If you click no, the insurance company check is going to go to your patient. So if you're in network and you're billing insurance, you definitely want the check to come to you. If you happen to submit a bill and you're out of network, you might want to have the check sent to the patient. So that's an important thing to pay attention to. Box 28, again, this is just my total charge. 29 is under amount paid. This would be like if the client paid a copay or a deductible or co-insurance, the amount you collected from them at the session that the insurance company says they owe. So she had a $10 copay. And then Box 30 can be left blank. Over here in 31, this is my signature, even though it's not my actual signature. It's still, they just allow you to print your name in there and then date. So in 32 and 33, these boxes happen to be the same because we're a group practice, but it could be different depending on how you have things structured. So, this might be like if you have a name for your practice and then you yourself are billing as an individual through the insurance company in box 33, you might put your name and then the address. And then in 32A, this would be, well, for me, it's the group NPI number. And then over here in 33A, again, it's the group because we bill as a group, but if you're an individual or you're individually credentialed with an insurance company, it would actually be your individual NPI number again. So that's like a very quick overview of how to fill this out. But I think it's really important to understand all of these different parts just so that you can hopefully have the claim form going into the insurance company the first time correctly. In my opinion, it's easier to take the time to make sure that it's correct sort of on the front end rather than trying to fix a problem on the back end, because that requires a lot of time and energy talking to the insurance company trying to figure out what happened. So hopefully this is a good kind of overview so that you can make sure your claim forms are being filled out correctly. So hope this was helpful, and I'll talk to you guys later.